This has become its own ideology, and it's so insidious, and I never thought I'd see this day in Utah. And on the Safer Families front, I say straight up, we need a separation between woke and state. Forget the church and state.
Oh, hey, that's a good slogan.
How about the car in the driver's seat? I pick you up, but there's only room for me.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I am your host, Cardinellis. Today, I'm joined in the studio, actually not in the studio, via Zoom by Luke Hansen, editor-in-chief of Ward Radio News, as well as by a first-time visitor. I would say friend of the show, but literally, we met him like 20 seconds ago. This is Trent Staggs, who is candidate for, correct me if I'm wrong, Senator of Utah, correct? You're filling Mitt Romney's seat?
That's right, yeah. Candidate for U.S. Senate here in the great state of Utah. And good to be on the program. This is one that is up election day here, June 25th. So here we are.
Oh, geez. Wow. Okay, sweet. So here's the deal. One of the premises of our show is we love that we're actually not a Utah show. Way too many times. We talk anything and everything tangential to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. All right. And one of the things that I loathe is that people still mistake Utah and Utah-isms for Mormon-isms, right? And we actually try and detach those as often as we can. At the same time, we recognize, hey, that's a reality. That's a reality. The way Utah goes sometimes, the way the North American conversation around the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints goes. So it's worth highlighting some of these people that are engaged in some of these kind of larger, more macro scale political races. And I can't think of anything more macro than governor or senator of the state of Utah. What on earth made you want to run? You know what I'm saying? Holy smokes. And my only real question for you is, I think the question everybody's asking, how on earth are you going to stop woke in Utah? Because let me tell you, man, Utah is more woke than Los Angeles is right now. I'm more worried about what they're teaching in school in freaking Utah County and Salt Lake County than I am in Los Angeles County if I were to move there. So yeah, give us the spiel. Tell us what you're about, man. Why this election is important. Why you're the guy for the job. You can get out of your system everything you got out of your system, and my viewers in Utah have to know. And then I'm curious how on earth you're going to go up against the mob of self-congratulatory Mormons who have so confused neoliberalism with the gospel of Jesus Christ that they could elect Spencer Cox as practically one of the brethren themselves and, put Mitt Romney in the church office building as the 13th apostle, right? So I don't know how you meander through that minefield, but yeah, hit us. Give us your speech, man. Tell us how you're gonna attack that problem.
Well, no, it's quite easy because Mitt Romney has a lot to do with it. My wife and I made the decision to run. First of all, I'm a lifetime Utahn, kind of grew up from elementary school to graduate school. I've attended Utah schools. This is my home. MBA from BYU in finance background, Morgan Stanley, operated several companies, took an energy company public back in 22 on the board of directors. So then in the last 10 years, I've been in local government, Riverton City. I've been the mayor there for the last 7. And, this is where I want to call home. And my wife and I have been blessed with 2 kids. And we just took a look at the state of this country and the service of Mitt Romney in particular, the representation of him. In May of last year, we decided, you know what, we're done. Can't have this guy being our senator anymore. So it was my stated goal to actually primary Mitt Romney. We announced in May. He made the decision not to seek re-election in late September. And so we just went out there right away and said, enough is enough. We had enough of this guy. He came out and said he was going to put us on a path to a balanced budget. He'd end illegal immigration. Look how well that's turned out. He'd stop federal spending and overreach, and he'd confirm conservative justices. Not his record. And just the way in which he's represented Utah. I've, as a local official here, I've talked to so many others that don't feel like they've ever gotten a response from his senatorial office. Mike Lee, on the other hand, completely different. And so I said, this has got to change. This has absolutely got to change. Let's have somebody who's really from Utah go represent us, who understands our values, can go out there and do a great job. And that's what we came to the decision to. And then, right away, because we were challenging such a stalwart, as you put, very, very well-known, somebody who ran for president, for crying out loud, who's very, very well-known in the state. I started picking up a lot of attention from media. So across the country, I mean, we ended up being endorsed right away by Mark Levin and Charlie Kirk and Kerry Lake, many other people that have run for office. Senators Rand Paul, for example, has endorsed my candidacy, Vivek Ramaswamy, and then President Trump.
Vivek?
President Trump
Hey, I dig Vivek. You know what I'm saying? That's cool.
A lot of great.
Wait, you're endorsed by all these cats?
I am. Yeah, it's been fantastic and wholly unexpected. I mean, here's somebody who has been just in local office, and I've got this knack for just being willing to stand up to the establishment and say enough is enough. So yeah, we have all these great endorsements. I think it's everybody coming around saying, look, we need to have a constitutional conservative, somebody to represent Utah and to be able to replace Mitt Romney, because the status quo, we elect far too many people who go back to DC to become part of, and they end up becoming part of the establishment, and they don't stand up against it. Okay. My whole record as a mayor said no to COVID, lockdowns, mandates, you name it. Time and again, I've stood up to the establishment. So I've demonstrated that in Utah. I'm going to take that same thing to DC. Okay. And one of the biggest things that I'm seeing is the wokeism and the infiltration that has had, as you pointed out, in our state. Case in point, one of my three things that I call on my website, and I've never changed it day one. As a senator, I'm going to champion every day smaller limited government, safer families, and a stronger economy. And on the safer families front, I say straight out, we need a separation between woke and state. Forget the church and state.
Oh, hey, that's a good slogan.
This has become its own ideology, and it's so insidious. And I never thought I'd see this day in Utah, in the school district where my two children attend. I actually called out last spring before I announced my candidacy. I found out through some parent groups that there was some 150 books in the school district where my two children go that were considered just flat out pornographic. I mean, just highly inappropriate for kids. I couldn't believe that they were there. And so I went and did the research, sure enough, found that, and called on the school board to get rid of the stuff immediately. And we've seen far too much of this. The Biden administration has wholeheartedly endorsed it. They pushed it down in our military, in our educational system, across many, many agencies. And we got to get rid of it in large part by just not funding it and fence off the funding for these types of things. And there's many agencies I believe that we should just get rid of wholeheartedly at the federal level, the Department of Education being one. Right? There's no constitutional directive for the federal Department of Education. Every Republican keeps talking about this. Let's just do it already. Get rid of the federal Department of Education. They're the ones that are causing so many problems, I believe, across so many states.
All right. Yeah. So I've been somewhat following this race from afar. And what I'm really confused about, from the Democrat frontrunner, I think she secured the nomination, Caroline, whatever her name is. And then also the main competition against you, John Curtis, there's this heavy emphasis on climate change, which just seems like such a bizarre emphasis to have in Utah. Like, Utah doesn't seem like some sort of environmental hippie type of place. That seems to be kind of the front issue, or at least one of them, for both these candidates. So, like, where in the world did this issue come from in Utah politics, and why is it such a big part of this Senate campaign?
That's a great question, and it's one that I am totally opposed to. I mean, climate change, I don't subscribe to climate alarmism at all. In fact, you're looking at somebody who is endorsed by the Oil and Gas Workers Association. So I believe in energy dominance, drill, baby, drill. And my opponent, John Curtis, as you pointed out, he founded the Climate Caucus in Congress. He's been a member of Congress for the last 7-8 years. And in fact, his campaign is almost fully funded by mega millionaire climate activist donors. So he's got almost $10 million in monies from PACs, and a big chunk of it from these climate folks that have now put $2 million in attack ads on me in the last 2 weeks.
Oh, what do they say, bro? No, dude, attack ads are the best. You know exactly how well you're doing by how they attack you. How do people attack you, bro? What do they say?
Oh my goodness, they've been making up all kinds of nonsense about my record as mayor. They claim that I, voted some big pay increase for myself when I don't even set that. It's my council that votes on it, and I went from a whopping $15,000 to $21,000 as a part-time mayor. I mean, this is the ridiculousness, the nonsense. They claim I raised all of these taxes and fees, which actually I've cut taxes in our city. We've cut property taxes. We have the lowest fees in the valley here in Riverton.
Hey, have you been accused of like strapping dogs to roofs or beating your wife yet, or like lying about a bankruptcy?
Nothing too crazy like that. Yeah, this is the nonsense.
Dude, I got to get some of that $10 million. I'll make an attack ad for you. If there's budgets like that floating around Utah, I'll do an attack ad against you. You know what I know? I'm just kidding. So, okay, Luke.
No, we need the money going the other way now and attacking him. So
are you the underdog, bro?
All one-sided.
Are you the underdog, man?
Yeah, at this point, polling has us a little bit behind. Some undecided still, and that's where we think we've got a great opportunity because so many people. John Curtis has got about an 80% plus name ID. So people aren't undecided because they don't know who he is, but we've had as much as 30% undecided in this race. And after spending $10 million in it, he's still kind of in that low 30% range.
Yeah.
Kind of where he's topping out in the polls. So we've got a great opportunity.
So what kind of people really end up going for you, man? Like, what have you noticed? Like, I've really been able to peel off this type of voter.
I think those people that are, they really want to see us return back to just common sense governance. I've been endorsed by President Trump, and so those people that are.
Oh, so you're a legit MAGA Mormon. Hey, we finally met a MAGA Mormon. Wait, so are you Mormon?
We've got a huge following with those. There's a good 40 to 50% of all the Republican voters that are identify themselves more so in Utah even. They identify themselves more so with President Trump, than they do even the Republican Party. And that's the level of populism that I think President Trump has been able to build, since his first term. People are sick and tired of it. I've done over 100 town halls across the state. They want the border secured. They want to fix the budget and stop all this crazy inflation that's costing Utah families like $12,000 more a year. And they want to stop all the crazy overreach in the federal government. It's been encroaching in their lives for so much. We got to stop it. I'm a little bit of a different opinion. I'm not running to become an agent of the state. I'm running just to represent the people. I mean, that's all I've known as a local mayor for 10, 11 years. I mean, my wife and I can't go to the grocery store without being, running into people and asking us about this thing or that thing local. That's what we need. We need elected representatives. We can't. Far too often we elect people that go back there and think they are leaders, and they get totally sucked in to this DC climate and DC culture, and it's not what I want to do. And I think, look, as a member of the LDS faith, we believe it's outlined in the Doctrine and Covenants that the Constitution is inspired. And Ezra Taft Benson used to pound on that all the time and say that next to the Book of Mormon, it's into Scripture, or that he would view it akin to Scripture because he believes it to be the Word of God. We do. And that's what we need more so than anything. I think that's where they do comport. You've got the Constitution on one side and the founding of this nation. We knew that this nation had to be founded in religious liberty. Ezra Taft Benson used to say that so that it could be the cradle of, that cradle or bedrock of operations, that base of operations for the church to be able to flourish. And so I think it's founding principles. There's a lot of love for those and those concepts amongst the culture here in the state of Utah. Very much so. We've got an ardent group that love the Constitution. I mean, you look at Mike Lee and how he's been able to win so solidly, and he's been very much focused on the Constitution. And so I think that's what the church wants more so than anything. They want to be able to return back to these founding principles, founding concepts that were biblically based and that we believe were needed so that the church could actually be founded and flourish. And so that's what we need to be able to do. Okay,
so I dig that response. Now here's a question. You say, okay, I have a history of being anti-establishment and I want to take that to Washington, D.C. These guys always get whitewashed into the system and so on and so forth. Yet, I got to tell you, as 2-decade veteran of radio and podcasting. You're not the first, congressional or senatorial candidate that I've interviewed or had a chance to come across. I've seen a lot of guys go to Washington and not get sucked into the system, but I've seen a lot of guys go to Washington and get sucked into the system. And guess what all of them had in common? They all said they were going to go to Washington to not get sucked into the system, right? So what's unique about you, and how are you going to keep yourself from just becoming the next Mitt Romney or from just becoming the next Mitch McConnell? Because they all said they were going to go watch Orrin Hatch's 1970s ads. He literally talked about, I'm going to go to Washington to change Washington and not become just like Washington. And then he literally became like the epitome of establishment Utah politics, right? So but it's not besmirching him. I'm just saying he became the epitome thereof, right? So what are you going to do that's going to make it different so you don't become the thing you're running against?
Yeah. Well, a few points. I think number one, look at my background, my history. I've always done that. I don't care if I win another election, quite frankly. And I've committed to a term limit pledge. I've signed it. It's 2 terms in the Senate, 3 in the House. And I actually created a contract with Utah. So last fall, I have 7 points on there. These are things that I've thought through. And I think if we were able to address these things, it would totally change the way in which politics operates at the national level. My number one thing in there, I want to ban the trading of stocks, individual stocks for members of Congress and their families. My opponent, John Curtis, has got a lengthy history of well-timed stock trades. He's like one of the best traders in Congress. And that's what happens. These people go back there and they become so wealthy by using their influence and their information that they've got access to. Number 2 on that list is I want to ban the ability for retiring members of Congress to become lobbyists, right? For at least a 10-year freeze, a 10-year ban on that, becoming a lobbyist or a defense contractor. That's how the money wheel keeps going too. So there are 7 points there. I pledged, that's my contract with Utah. We talk about it at all of our events. And I think thirdly, my third point is take a look at who's endorsed me. Yeah, I've intentionally gone out and I've sought these endorsements. People like the Senator Tommy Tuberville and Rand Paul, they're very much anti-establishment. They helped form with Mike Lee it's like the Freedom Caucus in the Senate. I pledged to join that. I said, look, I need to go back there and not be naive enough to think that I'm going to go back to DC and not be susceptible to a place that's has a highly corruptible influence. I want to go back there with wingmen, with folks that can have my back and help keep me true. Ultimately, it's the voters that are going to hold me true, but I got to go back there and have kind of a group. And that's what I think voters can look at and go, all right, yeah, this guy's going to go back there and do what he said he's doing.
Are you going to have matching T-shirts, bro? That sounds like a fun entourage, dog.
We could. Only if we can look like that one, though.
Yeah, dude. The Senate changed. Who's for the guy that dresses like John DeLynn with the big fat hoodie? What was his name? Fetterman. They changed the Senate rules for Fetterman. Are you going to get some cool hoodies that you can wear with your Freedom Caucus brothers and maybe have your videographer do a slow motion shot as you're walking in with your hoodies to some sick hip hop, being like, we're going to do a contract with Utah? Can that be your next promo, dog?
These are all great ideas. I mean, man, I had no idea that you'd have so many.
Okay, so
we're going to, that's great. We're going to do it.
Okay, so we only literally have 8 minutes left here. But here's a serious question though. From the bottom of my heart, I am concerned, one, as an American, for our birth rate. Just like all roads lead to Rome, all of this woke garbage leads to a lowered birth rate, less family formation, and more economic stress, which all hits one measurable quantifier, and that is birth rate. And now we are no longer even replacing ourselves as Americans, let alone Californians or Utahns. Okay. So what can even a senator do? Because there has to be limitations. But within those limitations, what can you do to actually make the lives of my Utah listeners more affordable and increase their birth rate. Because I don't know a single guy that is actually a good man that doesn't want to get married, have a house, have a family, and be able to provide. But it's such an insane uphill battle where all of the bottom rungs of the ladder have been swept out from underneath these guys. What would you actually do to make it so that these guys can get married, have children, and be truly pro-family? Not just like, oh, I'm going to join the Southern Baptist Convention and renounce gay marriage, pro-family. I mean pro-family, brass tacks, so we actually have a fertile environment in which men can meet women, have children, and buy a house.
Yeah, no, great question. And you're right. I mean, you look at Rome, you look at these other civilizations, great nations fall when they inflate their money and they lose their values. And that's where we're at today. I mean, my gosh, you take a look at just the inflation, the amount of dollars printed since COVID. It's insane. And that's why we've got such great inflation. I want to stop that. I want to stop digging the hole. One of my other points on the contract with Utah is a balanced budget. We've got to get there. We haven't had one since 2001. And so if we stop digging the hole and we get back to process, it sounds very boring, but the short of it is we need a new Senate Majority Leader, not Mitch McConnell, somebody that will agree to get us back to debating the budget and not just doing these continuing resolutions and passing these huge, huge omnibus spending bills. I'm opposed to that as well. So we get back to process, we balance the budget, that'll stop the inflation, and we have energy dominance. I mean, the base of our economy is all founded on energy. And as somebody who has taken an energy company public, look, I want less than $2 a gallon gasoline again. Let's stop it with the climate change nonsense. We can't just have a fig leaf of an infrastructure bill and it basically just funds all of this woke agenda in terms of climate change.
Why doesn't Utah have
dollars there?
Why doesn't Utah have 15 nuclear power plants? Like if there's any state that could export energy ad nauseum and have a workforce that's talented and motivated enough to literally be the France of the Western United States that exports energy, like nuclear reactors. This is what I loved about Andrew Yang's platform. He was the only guy that talked energy and said, we need nuclear power plants. Like, why isn't Utah leading the Western United States in nuclear energy?
Well, there's far too much regulation, and that's my third point. So we need to fix the budget with respect to stop digging the hole, balance it, get energy dominance, pursue policies that'll actually create a super abundant energy economy. So we have very, very low rates of energy costs. And that's mostly tied to regulation. Guess what? It's the federal government that's in the way. I mean, I know this having taken a company public. It was a horrible experience. I mean, it's estimated that the regulatory state is a $4 trillion drag on our economy. And it costs the average employer almost $20,000 just to come into compliance with all the nonsense, $20,000 per employee just to come into compliance with federal regulation. And Mike Lee has been pushing on this. It's called the REINS Act, or EINS. They want to rein in the federal government because all these 3-letter agencies that make you want to say 4-letter words.
That was cute.
Creating 100,000 pages of regulation every year. 100,000 pages, and it has the binding effect of law. It's unconstitutional. We need to bring it back to our reps. We got to vote on it before it can become law. And if that one act will significantly reduce the regulation out there, get rid of a lot of these agencies. I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy has endorsed me. He's calling for his American Truth Pledge, by the way, to cut 75% of the federal employee workforce. 75%. There's so much duplication in government. There's so much unnecessarily done at the federal level. I understand that at the local level. If government's to be involved at the federal level, it's supposed to be in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. That's it. Everything else should be left to the states and to the people. There's far too much regulation going on. We get rid of those things, people can succeed. The economy, the shackles will be taken off. And you're going to see the ability for people to stop all this crazy inflation. We're going to see affordability back to where you can actually afford. That's what I think the problem is. So many young people are delaying getting married and having children because they think, boy, I just can't afford it.
Dude, you have a child that bankrupts you. I think Brad had to dump 15 or 20K into his last kid just in medical bills. And so you're literally looking at your savings account with $4,000 in it. You're like, honey, if we have a kid and he needs one day in an incubator in a Wasatch Front hospital, like we are indebted every tax return for the next decade. Like, can we afford this? I mean, it is absolutely absurd. And so this actually where my last question comes in, and then Luke, you can ask one more question, and then this poor guy can go. He's probably so tired of us right now and just, putting up with us. But everybody's always talking about the separation of church and state, yet there is a fusion thereof. We try and incentivize all kinds of things, moral things, spiritual things as a society, if we value and believe in them. For example, homes. We believe part of the, quote, American dream is home ownership. So we will subsidize them for veterans. If you serve, we give you subsidized home loans. We allow you to deduct taxes from your state or your federal taxes from any kind of interest you're paying on a mortgage loan. Why? Because as Americans, we've kind of come to this, agreement that home ownership, it's an American thing. We want to help support it. We want to incentivize it. So we incentivize it through taxation, right? What could you as a senator do to incentivize more family creation and more childbirth?
To incentivize more family creation and more childbirth.
Yeah, because I look at tons of guys not getting married because they don't think they can afford it. Marriage has basically become a luxury good. And then childbearing once you are married, forget it, dude, because each one of these, unless you're a millionaire, you can't have 4 kids. I look at our birth rate as being wildly tanked. I don't know. Can we subsidize more kids? Can we, I don't see why parents of children don't get a massive tax credit and a thank you from Uncle Sam for having another future citizen. Does that make sense?
So is that your question, is if there should be a child tax credit, Cardin?
Well, yeah. What can be done? What can the government actually do to incentivize a higher birth rate and family creation?
Well, I think a lot of what they can do is get out of the way. I mean, our tax code has become, you just mentioned that, it's just way too onerous. And the tax cuts that President Trump signed in office in 2017, by the way, if they expire, which they're set to do in 2025, if we don't have a Republican majority, the impact on the average Utah family is $2,300 more they're going to pay in federal tax. So we can address it through tax policy. I think housing affordability, you brought up a very good point. And Utah has a really difficult situation because 2/3 of our land is owned or controlled by the federal government. A lot of people don't recognize that outside the state. 67% of our land is Bureau of Land Management or U.S. Forestry. We don't even own it. We can't control it. And that's been a big fight for the state of Utah with D.C. for some time. We need to get our lands back. We can be better stewards of it. Mike Lee proposed just kind of a baby step, said, look, just give us 1%. 1% of the land that currently is held by the Bureau of Land Management that's closest to cities where we've got infrastructure to water and sewer, roads. If we did that and just got 1% back and we built quarter-acre lots on it, we'd have over 700,000 homes we could add in the state of Utah. That would double our housing stock. And so you can imagine what would happen to the availability, the affordability of homes if we had another, hundreds of thousands of units that we were able to put on the market. So housing from a federal standpoint with the federal lands issue, and then with infrastructure, being able to get, not everything needs to be built along the Wasatch Front. We can have roadways through our gas tax monies and others that connect varying parts of Utah so we can build there and maybe have a better quality of life, in certain areas which aren't so rapidly increasing as they are along the Wasatch Front. It's a big, big deal.
Yeah. Luke, hit it. You get the final question, bro.
All right. Well, just one point to your point, Cardin, is right now, only 39% of registered voters say that society is better off if people make marriage and having children a priority. So less than half. It's just so scary.
What?
It's disturbing.
Do we live in a nihilistic society now? Or what? That's anti-human.
Yeah, and it's 34 with women. So it's only 1 in 3 potential voter women. And then 44 for the men. It is bad. So I'm totally with you on that one, Cardin.
Oh,
and
geez.
Trent. But I guess to round it out, I think a good WardRadio question to end this thing on is, Trent, why have you been, and remain a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Well, I've got a strong conviction in, in belief in God. and in Jesus Christ. And these are things that have guided my life, guided my family, my decision to be married, to have children. And that's, I think, getting back to that question too, government needs to be able to promote the general welfare. And we can do that largely by not merging church and state, but promoting more religiosity and religion in the country. That's how we were founded too. And so much of religion, I've experienced this as a mayor. When you have a strong societal family units in your community, guess what? Your crime rate is lower. The cost to educate is lower. There's a lot of added benefits to the society and lowered governmental costs. So, that's another big thing that government can do, is kind of get out of the way there, promote in religion. But that's very, very important to me. It's why I'm a member of the church. And I think with respect to government, there's some, again, a lot of our base beliefs is that the Constitution is inspired, and it is something that was created for the founding, or that helped the founding of this nation, and therefore the founding of the church, and became therefore the base of operations for the LDS Church. And that's something that I want to be able to protect. I think those founding principles, the further we've gotten away from it, the more problems we've experienced as a country. That's why we're so significantly in debt. That's why we have an open border. That's why we have this regulatory state that we talked about. So I want to get back there to fix those things and help protect religious liberty and freedom, and also promotion of family and family values.
Okay, dude, I love what I'm hearing. One last question. Is there anything you can do to outlaw these weird names that Utahns give their kids? Like, I got some cousins with just like unpronounceable, strange names. And every time I meet them, I literally have to ask my wife, how do you pronounce their name again? And it's an epidemic out there. Is there any legislation that can be passed? Is there any kind of, state coercion that can be introduced so people can just get like normal names like Cardin? No, I'm just kidding.
Like Cardin, there you go.
No, yeah, that's crazy. All right, well, I got to tell you, bro, I haven't met any of your opposition. I've only met you in this race, but you seem like a wildly reasonable, trustworthy, smart, and level-headed guy. And I am not nearly important enough of a person to have an endorsement matter. But I got to tell you, I'd vote for you. If I was in Utah, I would vote for you. And if you have, if you guys, listeners out there, if you're still undecided and you don't know who you're going to vote for, please take what he says seriously, because I've loved pretty much everything you said. There was times where it got a little politician-y, I'll be honest with you, but it's your job, but I love everything you said. You're a stud, and your family's gorgeous. I saw your picture on your website, and I was like, you literally look like the family they put in picture frames at Target before you buy it, like that, just like generically gorgeous family. You think like, oh, maybe my family would be cute if I buy this picture too. That's you guys. So you did a good job, Trent. So anyway, all right, awesome, guys. Well, if you have any questions for Trent, his PR team's probably going to be lurking in the comments here, answering those questions. And today is election day, so make sure you guys go out and you vote. And if you don't know who to vote for, hey, vote for this guy. Seems smart. So anyway, as always, guys, for this and more, please make sure you check us out at wardradio.com.
How about the car in the driver's seat? I pick you up, but there's only room for